Rugby Championship second game sees the Pumas hosting the All Blacks from Argentina. It's a pretty exciting looking game. I know there's a lot of build up for this one. Part of the fact in that the Jaguares had such a very good season in Super Rugby. Part of the fact that the All Blacks are bringing in a few new players for this game and resting some of their more experienced Crusaders guys. It seems like one of those situations where if Argentina are going to get a win over the All Blacks, this would be a good time to get it done. But still, they have not beaten the All Blacks before. You got to think if they're going to play together in the Rugby Championship, it will happen eventually. In my lifetime, Ireland used to have never beaten the All Blacks, and now they've beaten us twice. So these things do happen. And Argentina seem to be a side on the improve. That being said, it's still a pretty talented looking All Black side that's gone across, despite some of those guys who are missing. So I will put the teams in the description. You guys can have a look at the lineups and let me know what you think of those teams. Before I get into that, last five, obviously, all New Zealand wins. Average score is 38 points to 18, so a 20-point difference over those last five games. So New Zealand in recent years have been pretty comfortable over Argentina. But it's only in the last kind of season that Mario Ledesma has taken over as Argentina coach. His record at the Jaguares was pretty good. He's worked with the Wallabies before, so you got to think he's helping to lift those guys. Quesada has been doing a great job with the Jaguares as well, so they seem to definitely be a side on the improve. Whereas the All Blacks are pretty stable. This lineup they've picked is relatively experimental for the All Blacks, but we'll go over the names. Speaking of stable, the Pumas have pretty much named a same team that played in the Super Rugby final against the Crusaders, with two guys who didn't play in that game, and that is Nicolás Sánchez, who comes in at 10, and Juan Figallo, who comes in at tight head. Otherwise, it's the exact same team that played in that final for the starting 15. So front row, Tetaz, Chaparro, Creevy, and Figallo. They're going to have a pretty big job containing the All Black scrum because it's been an area of weakness for the Argentinians. You feel like that's a key area to get right. Petti and Lavanini will have no problems in the second row. They're a classy duo. Matera is captain at 6, Kremer at 7, and Ortega Desio gets the nod at 8. I thought Isa might have started or appeared on the bench, but he is not in the squad for this game. I'm not sure if he's had any knocks in the training camp, because I heard he was training from some of you guys on the bench, but he's not to be seen. And he's a quality player, so it's a bit disappointing that he's not there, but we'll see how Ortega Desio goes, because he's a pretty good player as well. The backs, Cubelli was on form in Super Rugby. Sánchez adds something else that Bonilla perhaps doesn't have. Bonilla was excellent in the Super Rugby semi-finals, pretty poor in the Super Rugby final, so he is only on the bench behind Sánchez, which is probably a logical choice because Sánchez is a class player. Midfield is still De La Fuente and Orlando. Outside backs is Moyano, Moroni, and Boffelli. So it's a pretty tough look inside. They've still got some talented guys on the bench. Alemano is back. Alemano. I got that pronunciation wrong previously. He's back from a foot injury, which is good to see because he's genuine lock coverage. Lozana is there, loose forward cover. Montoya Vivas, who's a youngster who I would like to see start, but I guess he's still young, so he needs to kind of ease his way into it. And Medrano starts ahead of Herrera, who's also been brought back from overseas. No room for Cordero as well, which I suppose is a little bit disappointing. So that's 3 players who they called back from Europe, and Herrera, Cordero, and Isa, and none of them make the squad, which is kind of interesting that if you're going to pick them from overseas, I would have thought you play them, but I guess not necessarily, because I think they have talked about picking the Jaguares guys first, and that's what they've done here. For the All Blacks, there's a fair few debutants in this lineup, but it's Tuangafasi, Coles, and Ta'avao in the front row, so interesting to see Tuangafasi on the loose head. I guess that's partly World Cup prep as well, to take a guy who can play both sides, because for the Blues, he was pretty much always a tight head. Retallick and Tuipolotsu are the locking duo, obviously no Whitelock because he's been with the Crusaders. Via Fafita gets his shot at 6. You got to feel like this is a pretty important game for him to impress, because there's not many chances to get that starting 6 spot. You feel like if Squire was eligible, he would have played. But with him standing himself down, Fafita needs to step up and have a good game. Kane captains from number 7, and Savia is interestingly at 8. So that's going to be a pretty dynamic back row. We'll see how they go because Savia has been in top form. Aaron Smith and Barrett are 9 and 10. I guess kind of standard. Geordie Barrett is left wing, which is a bit of a left field one, to be fair. He's been put on the wing before for the All Blacks, so we'll see how he goes. I mean, he is a very tall guy, and he'll be up against, is it Moyano on the right wing? Yeah, Moyano's not a big guy. Moyano's got the steps, but he doesn't have the height, so we'll see if they pick out Geordie in the air. Sevu Reece is on the left wing, ahead of Rico Ioane. That's, I guess, giving Rico a break and giving Sevu his chance, man. That's his debut. So he's the only guy amongst all these guys who are going to debut, and there is 5 of them, who's starting. So big pressure on him. Defensively, he'll need to be pretty solid. And the ever-reliable Ben Smith is there at fullback. So more debutants on the bench. So you've got Coltman is there. He's reliable. A very good Super Rugby season. Good for him to get a spot on the bench. Moley will make his test debut when he comes on. Lalala is there. Himopo is there as well. Luke Jacobson will make his debut. Brad Weber will get his second cap when he comes on. I'm very glad to see him get some minutes. And Josh Ioane is there as well. I guess they're giving Moonga a rest, so he will likely make his debut. And Braden Enor is there as kind of midfield and outside back coverage. So they have rewarded Super Rugby form, which is a pretty good thing to see. They are experimenting a bit by giving so many guys debuts. So, as I said, this is not a fully established All Blacks lineup, whereas that Argentinian team is very solid based on what we saw in Super Rugby. So if those guys can step up, it could be a very tight game. That being said, the bookies still have the All Blacks pretty comfortably by 12 points, so that's not a blowout, but they're still saying they're pretty comfortable favourites. The last time they met in Argentina last season, there was a bit of build-up to that game as well, but it ended up being 35-17 to the All Blacks. The Argentinian team that day was a bit of a letdown, so hopefully this is going to be a good game. This is on pretty early in the morning, like 6 o'clock in the morning here in New Zealand, so it should be good for most people to get up, have some breakfast, and watch the All Blacks. You guys let me know your thoughts on this game. How do you think is it going to go? If you haven't joined the Super Brew pool for tipping, it's probably your last chance to do so. So jump in and put your tips in for who do you think is going to win the game. On Patreon, I will be doing some little summary vids after each gaming week to see how did the tipping go, how did my picks go, and how did everybody else's go. So if you are keen to join me and you got a couple of bucks to spare, join me on Patreon for that as well. But yeah, you guys let me know your thoughts on the game. How do you think it's going to go? And yeah, I'll talk to you again soon. See you later.